Okay, so more from Hollywood, because all it does is choke out propaganda. So you guys remember Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart was the host of The Daily Show for about 20 years, 18, 19, 20 years, something like that. Little known fact, some of you may know this, I actually interned at The Daily Show in 1999 when Jon Stewart had just taken over. You may remember that Craig Kilborn, who was a former ESPN anchor, a guy I really loved in college, he was the first host of the Daily Show, and then Jon took over. It was a very weird time to be there because there was a lot of turnover. They were firing a lot of people. Their senses of humor were different, so there was a lot of churn there. But it was a formative experience. I was doing stand-up at night. I was interning there during the day. I was working at Electronics Boutique, which you now know as GameStop, in my free time, so I could have a little money, eat some food. I was eating a lot of tuna back then. I'll probably die of a mercury overdose because that's all I could afford. In any event, over the 20 years that Jon Stewart hosted the Daily Show, you know, there was a idea out there that this is where young people get their news. And that's what everyone kept saying. This is where young people get their news. And it was a culturally important show, right? And then, you know, and he was sort of basically a good liberal, like sort of, it was before wokeism, really. He completely went in on Trump derangement syndrome. And then he dipped out as Trump had his 4 years. So he kind of went away for a while. Now he's back apparently with a show on Apple TV, and he's gone full woke. He's gone full woke. These lefties, and this is like the Bill Maher thing I always talk about, they just don't know when to stop.
And thus, the problem with white people. Hold on. I'm just gonna stop for a second and pose so you can get your memes out. Okay, there we go. Get a good picture for your clickbaits. For however sincerely we want to reckon and listen, the truth is America has always prioritized white comfort over black survival.
It's such boring bullshit. And trust me, it went on and on and on. And he had a ridiculous panel where he was basically applauding as a white woman was calling, a white woman who seemingly didn't know she was white, calling all white men evil. This stuff is so, yes, America has always been based on white comfort. All the men who died in coal mines and who were laying track and died and got burned in horrible accidents in oil rigs and all of those things. It was all done in the name of white power so that white comfort ultimately could rule the day. This is the best, maybe not for much longer, and you freaks are doing a pretty good job of destroying it. This is the best country in the history of the world. Jon Stewart, give up your show, man. What are you doing? You're a white dude. You're a white dude, okay? Maybe you should give up your show and give it to a black guy. Is there not some black guy that could do comparably what you do? You're pandering woke bullshit. What are you doing? Why are you taking the $10 million? I'm sure it's got to be at least a $10 million a year deal from Apple TV, right? That's a lot of money. Why don't you give it to a black guy? But you're not going to do that. Colbert, you're not going to do that. Jimmy Kimmel, you're not going to do that. You're just going to tell white people how horrible they are. And it's like, man, I've just had it with these freaking people. But the funny thing about Jon Stewart is the same thing as Bill Maher, which is he sometimes kind of gets it. And then you see all these people that are like, oh my God, he kind of gets it. He's a liberal who's not a complete moron. It's a miracle. My God, somebody should say something. It's so wonderful. You may remember a couple months back, I believe this was June, when Jon Stewart was on the Colbert Show. And even though for a year and a half, a whole bunch of us were saying, do you think that maybe COVID was a lab leak? Well, Jon Stewart said it on Colbert, and then suddenly everyone was allowed to talk about it.
I think we owe a great debt of gratitude to science. Science has, in many ways, helped ease the suffering of this pandemic, which was more than likely caused by science.
There was a chance that this was created in a lab. There's an investigation.
A chance?
Well, but
oh my
if there was
God.
evidence, I'd love to hear it.
There's a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan Novel Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think? And then they ask the scientists, they're like, how did this, so wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. There's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. What do you think happened? Like, oh, I don't know. Maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean. Or it's the chocolate factory. Maybe that's it.
That could be.
All right, I don't know. Is he funny anymore? Like, I don't know. It's not for me to say. Like, it's just, it is what it is. But the point is that after that, suddenly mainstream media said we were allowed to talk about the lab leak. Before that, people were getting banned from Twitter, kicked off Facebook, shadow banned, the rest of it, from all of the social media sites for even questioning that maybe there was a lab leak. Maybe there was a lab leak that led to all of this. So Jon gets some stuff right, but unfortunately, this is what happens. And there's a reason, there's an entropy to it. Why do so many of the supposed good liberals or these people who are not complete idiots? I don't think Jon in his heart is a complete idiot. I really don't. I think he's probably mostly a decent guy. But once you go into that thing on the left, once you go into collectivism, once you go into wokeism, there's nothing you can do to defend yourself against it, because now you have to bow, because at the end, Jon, you are now a, 60-year-old white guy. You are a 60-year-old white guy. So you know you have to bow to the activist base. So give up your show. I really mean that. Give up your show. Give up your show, or at least, Jon, I have no doubt, you must be worth $50 million. At least give up $20 million to help young black TV hosts get shows, if you really believe any of this. But none of them believe any of it.